everybody's using PropStream, and we kind of just want to get a deep dive on the capabilities. Right now we do a lot of comping on it, but I know it does so much.
If you're just doing comping on it, yeah, I hate to break it to you, you're probably only using maybe like 25, 30% of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the data that we have for people to comp is amazing. You got property info, you got mortgage data, and you got sales, right? MLS data. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to call you out. You're definitely missing a huge portion of PropStream that I think you should tap into.
Heck yeah. Well, I just put multiple members can share screen. So whatever you feel like we need to know about it.
Yeah, let's start. So I think, you know what? Let's do this. Let me give you a top-down perspective just so you know all the features that we have. So let's do this. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so I know you're using half of it, but let me give you like what we actually do. So if you were to ask me, hey, what does PropStream do? Two important things. One is analyzing a property. So you're absolutely right, right? You could type in an address. We're going to give you property details, demographics, mortgage information. That's important if you're doing like anything creative, or again, if you're trying to buy the property in cash, you want to make sure you're not offering them lower than the mortgage. You get to see other properties the owner has. That's called our linked properties. You get to run comps, as you mentioned, Travis. So use our public records, MLS records. We do have the ability to buy documents. So if you want to purchase like the deed or the pre-foreclosure document or the mortgage document, you can through PropStream. It isn't a cost of $5, but you can do that directly through our platform. And then we have some rehab calculators. So you might be familiar with that, or for those that are watching, if you're trying to figure out, what can PropStream do for me, this is one of the things that we can do for you. So when that phone rings and it's a homeowner, just ask them for the address, type it in, and this is the information that we'll provide you. Now, the other part of PropStream is what gets that phone to ring, and that's the lead generation part of PropStream. So one thing about PropStream is we have a lot of data. And so let's talk about that, right? So we're nationwide. You could search any property you'd like. So you could literally like zoom into Missouri right now and then just click on a parcel. So let's do that. Let's go to Columbia, and let me just grab a random parcel here and we'll go into the details. So again, I'm in Southern California, Orange County to be exact. So I could go to a different state, different market, click on a property, in this case, 411 Westmount Avenue. Now, if I could be honest with you, I would actually recommend that you search the address. So you can click on a parcel, then go into the details, but search the address if you can. The reason I recommend that is we paint the picture around the property too. So the house that I clicked on is now the green little icon on the map. There's the house here on the right side. So that box, we moved it to the right. We took the city that house is in and gave you all the local listings, like how many properties are listed. Here's how many cash transactions are happening in that city, because you might need to find a buyer for the contract, right? So I recommend that you search the address so you can kind of just get local information. But if you are going into a conversation with the owner, then you definitely want to still go to the details of the property. And this is what we're known for, right? So we've been in business for about 18 plus years. We started in 2006. I joined the team back in 2011, and I fell in love with what we do because for me, I think there's a huge responsibility of making sure you have good data, because having good data means you guys can solve the problem of that homeowner that needs your help. So it's a win-win situation. You guys are happy, the homeowner you're helping is happy. So got to make sure we have good data. So we buy data from multiple providers and then we display it on this one page. Now, the reason that's important is because it gives you guys the ability to analyze the property. So you can either get information on who the owners are and property info. You have the comping section, so you can run your comps using public records or MLS records. But here's what's cool about PropStream is that most properties are going to look like this when you pull it up, right? Address at the top, satellite image, property details, comps, but no two properties are the same. That's something that you have to understand. And so let's say you typed in a pre-foreclosure address, like one of these 24 properties, right? And you went into a pre-foreclosures address, it's going to look the same, but things are slightly different here. One, we have MLS photos because this property just so happens to be on the market as well. It looks like it was listed this month, and here are some MLS photos. Two, unlike the property we were on before, it went from property details to comparables, but this property is in pre-foreclosure, so we get to see that notice of default that was recorded last month. And then we get to also see any additional, what we call situational data. So not only is it in pre-foreclosure, but they tried to sell it and it failed. And so you could see, additional statuses. And then if you're still interested in this pre-foreclosure property that failed on market, and then go run your comps, right? So it's always property details, the situational stuff, then the comps, and then our new stuff, PropStream intelligence. Now, AI, very vague. What the hell do you mean by that? Let me just break it down. So our AI is a new machine learning platform. It takes the data that we're buying, it runs through our AI, and then it gives it to you. Now, what is it doing? That's the important part. So we told our AI to do two things for right now. And we're going to tell it to do more things. But right now, the two things are take a look at those photos for us and grade them, right? So take a look at the rooms, take a look at the floor, the walls, the bathroom, all of that stuff. Take a look at it and grade it for us. And then once it does that, it then breaks it down. All right, well, here's the total condition of that property. It's average. The exterior is pretty poor. I mean, you can see it from the photos. The interior is pretty average. Kitchen's average. The bathroom's average. So again, you could have done this yourself, but the reason I think this is powerful is when you're asking PropStream for 1,000 failed listings and each of them have 21 photos, do you have time to go to 21,000 photos? I don't think so. So that's where the grading comes into play, right? You market to those properties that failed, and when someone calls you back and you type in the address, boom, here's the breakdown of that property's condition. So that's the first thing we've told our AI to do. Look through our MLS photos, give it a grade, right? And not only is it cool that we did that, I will get to this a bit later, but we included a filter for it in our search filter menu. There's a new section called PropStream Intelligence. So I can say, hey, go to Miami Beach and find me all the properties that are in disrepair because I could find a millionaire for that property if I need to, right? So very powerful AI. It's not a chat box. It's not doing this or that or writing out your scripts for you, which is cool. I'm not dismissing that, but we decided to use it towards our data instead. So take a look at that data and then give us a breakdown of that property's photos. The other thing that we've instructed it to do, that property did not have that available. So let me see if I can find one from my previous search here. All right, this one had it for sure. Is we told our AI data to look for indicators, behaviors, trends. However, what we instructed it to look towards was pre-foreclosure data. So go through all the pre-foreclosure data in that market that property's in and identify indicators. And by the way, look at our mortgage data while you're at it, because again, we have mortgage data. So go through the pre-foreclosure data, go through the mortgage data, and then go through our demographics as well. Income levels, how many people are living in the households. Take those three pieces of data set and look for indicators. Okay, now that you found those indicators, how likely is this address going into foreclosure? In this case, 98% very likely. And now, again, I could have come up to this conclusion. If you're really good at deciphering data, you could have came to the same conclusion. I'll give you an example how I would have come to a conclusion. One, it's in pre-foreclosure. Obviously, I would have put you right at the 90% off the bat, right? Now, not 100%, because you could still sell me your house in cash, or you can, rent it out and figure it out, right? So not 100% yet. Now, where does the other 8% come into play? Well, you have a lien on your property. So on top of your pre-foreclosure, now your HOA wants money. So add a little percentage to that, right? 90%. Let's say 3%. You're at 93%. Well, where does that other 5% come into play? You tried to sell and it failed. That's where the 98%. Now, we're not saying 100% because, again, one of you guys could call this owner and then give them an offer and then they're not in foreclosure anymore, right? So there's never going to be 100%. The only time it'll ever be 100% is when it's officially bank owned. And then by that time, that thing goes away because now it's owned by the bank, right? The owner is not the owner anymore. So that's how our intelligence data is working. It's taking our data that we have and we're telling it to look at photos and give it a grade. And then not only that, we're also telling it to look at the mortgage data, the foreclosure data, and break that down for us and see if there's any indicators. This property, in case doesn't we haven't been able to qualify that, but this came really quick and it did fail. So I would say probably in about a week, you're going to see a number here. So look out for that. So you got the property info, you have the situational data. If you're still interested in it, you get to run your comps. So this is where the comping comes into play. Now, we do have access to public records and MLS records. One thing about Missouri, it's a non-disclosure state, meaning that the county doesn't show you sell prices. This is where MLS data comes into play. So knowing that, and by the way, PropStream warns you, says, hey, it's a non-disclosure law, by the way. I could just say, well, then just use the MLS so I can get the realtor's prices. And then I can use MLS to run my comps. You have filters, so feel free to use that. Again, we have our intelligence section. This breaks down the grade, the foreclosure factor, demographics. Personally, what I like about the demographics, I love the income brackets. I love all that stuff. I actually think this is the most important thing out of the bunch. This is my opinion. Show me how many owners versus renters around this property. And that's the key component, not the city, not the zip code, but 1 mile around this property. It took us a while to do this, but we're telling you, hey, around this property, there's more owners than renters. Now, why is that important to me? Lets me know what type of strategy I can implement on this property now. If I acquire this property, knowing that there's 80% or more in owners, I'm gonna fix and flip this property and sell it at top dollar. But if that number was reversed, right? Let's say it was 86% renters. Well, I'm not gonna fix and flip it like nice, nice, nice. I'll make it look good, and then I'll put it in my rental portfolio. So demographics is important, especially within 1 mile, because what happens to this property, right? This is number one, right? So it's right over here. What happens over here doesn't happen over here. So if I click on this property over here and I go into the demographics of this said property, is it 80% renters in this area? Look at that. The renters completely almost flipped. There's more renter. Well, the renter market is growing in this area than it is right over there, literally 5 minute drive eastward, right? So demographics subject to each property. That's the key component. So when you're having your conversation with your buyers or even your homeowners, you can utilize that in your conversation. If you're conversating with a buyer, Mr. Buyer, more renters in this area, you might want to consider this as a long-term thing. If you're talking to a fix and flipper and there's more owners in this area, hey man, this area has a lot of owners moving in. You should consider fix and flipping. So demographics for me is very important, especially because it's within a 1 mile radius of that property. Tax info, mortgage data, right? Loan, lender, interest rates, the terms, and then documents that you can purchase. So this is what we're known for. And again, if we look at the outline, that's all analyzing a property. So we got you covered. Now, I will admit, we don't have everything. A lot of people ask me, well, how come you don't have this or that? There are some aspects that we may not have, or we just don't collect at all. Community data, like we don't show crime rates or anything around that property. So we don't have that. You might need to go somewhere else for that. And then there's also data that no one can collect. I call it life data. And this is something I always remind people why you should always speak to owners. Because we don't know if maybe their parent is sick and they got to move in 45 days or less. So we could only give you so many pieces to the puzzle. There are going to be pieces that you're going to figure out when you're talking to the homeowner. Maybe their kids got a scholarship, they got to go elsewhere. Parents are sick. Maybe they just feel homesick and they want to move back to wherever they're from. So have your conversations and hopefully we'll cover the other obvious stuff like the mortgage note, the comps, the details of the property, but we don't know the personal stuff. So make sure you still have your conversations, okay? Before I show you guys the other part of PropStream, the lead generation part, does anybody have any questions regarding our property details? No?
I really like the
You know what?
AI part of it. I have not even paid attention to that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it came out like a month and a half ago, so you probably missed it. Probably busy with the holidays. I don't blame you. But here's my 2 cents on that. AI, it's machine learning. So one, you might see a house that's in disrepair right now, and then like a month later, because the investor renovated it and then relisted the property, it could change statuses. And that to me is cool. B, it also will learn because of that. It'll know what a house looked like in disrepair in that market and what it looks fully renovated. And so just getting that data, not just there, but when you're talking about a nationwide level, the grading system is going to get extremely great. So I'm excited for it. I feel like we just planted a seed and now I'm like watching it kind of like root out of the ground. And then in like a year, it's going to be like, oh, damn, this is a redwood tree all of a sudden. Like, where did this come from? And so I'm really excited about that. So thank you for mentioning that, Travis. We really appreciate that. Well, you know what? For anybody watching that's new, one of the common questions I get is, there's a lot of data. I agree with you. Here's just advice I would give anybody that's new watching this. One of the things I get is where do I begin when it comes to like negotiating or analyzing? Here's a little tip. If you guys have ever heard the word comps before, use that. I like to do this in my training, but whenever you're talking to a homeowner, for those that are new, for those that are seasoned, you probably already do this. But for those that are new, I would just approach it this way. Just think of comps, but break it down, right? So when you're first talking to a property owner or just analyzing the property, get a feel for the condition, right? Look at the photos or look at our intelligence or even ask the owner. hey, if I gave you a blank check, what would you do to your house? Oh, the kitchen? Oh, the bathroom? Okay, great. So understand the condition. Is it fully renovated? Is it at 50% of, versus the renovated properties in the area? Understand that too. Oh, right. That's the next letter in comps. Obstacles. And we talked about that. It could be a lien, it could be a pre-foreclosure, it could be my mom is sick and I gotta get out of here in 30 days. So understand the obstacles and feel free to move them around, right? If you want to know the obstacles first so you can build that rapport, go for it. But you still got to figure out the condition right after. After that, the mortgage, right? So do I need to buy your house with a mortgage or without? Or do I need to pay more than the mortgage? Or am I going to do something creative with your mortgage, right? So understand the mortgage of the property. And then the letter P of comps, that's the price. That's when the comping comes into play, right? Once I know the condition, let's say it's at 80%, you got to sell in 30 days, you got a mortgage that's $150,000. Well, is it worth of my time? And let's say I run comps and I figure out the comps are like $300,000 in the area. Perfect. Houses could sell for 300,000. Your mortgage is at 50% of that value. The condition of your property is 80%. Man, I got a strategy for you. How does a 70% cash offer sound? So for those that are new and or just like, hey, where do I start? PropStream has a lot of data. Don't let it overwhelm you. Just break it down this way: comps, condition, obstacle, mortgage, price, and then you can tell them what your strategy is. Okay, is it a cash offer? Are you an agent? Are you going to list it? Are you going to offer them maybe a sub two strategy, lease options? We're going to rent it out for them. So comps, and hopefully that should help you guys out. Okay, all right. I'm going to shift over to the lead gen part. Anybody have any questions? I heard no earlier. I don't see any. Great. Okay. So when it comes to lead gen, quite a few things that we have to offer. So first off, I like to break it up into three parts. Part one is build your list with us. And there's really just four steps to that: search, save, or search, filter, then save. And then you can just export those addresses. Okay. That's part one. So if you're just here for addresses, buyers and sellers, we got you, right? You're a part one user. Part two is skip tracing. That means I can get you a phone number or an email. You can do that directly through PropStream. It's 12 cents an address. So who would want to do that? If you're a cold caller, if you do SMSs, if you send out emails, you can consider step two. Now, what if you have your own skip tracing provider? Let's say your nephew goes through the Yellow Pages. That's your skip tracer. Great. You're a part one user. You're going to build that list with us, export it, and now let your nephew go through the Yellow Pages one at a time, right? So that's your skip tracing. So you don't have to use us, but it is here if you don't want you to put your nephew to work, okay? So build your lists. You can skip trace that list within PropStream and get your results in a few moments. Then you can export it and upload it to your dialer or whatever platform you're using for that stuff. We also have marketing though. So consider that. Now we don't have a dialer, we don't have SMSs. We choose not to. There's a lot of regulations and we just want to stay away from now. But what we do have are we could set you up with a website. So if you build a senior owners list, you can build a website that says, would you like to retire here? And show the address that you're trying to offer them, perhaps. And then you could send them postcards and emails. So website first, then you could send postcards and emails. Now, in order to do emails, you do have to skip trace. So just be aware of that. So are you going to use all three parts, or are you just going to build a list and get out? Or are you going to build a list, skip trace, and then get out? Or do all three: build a list, skip trace, and send postcards and emails. If you do that, it should lead you to analyzing a property. Okay. So what I will be focusing on today is just mainly the build the list part. So if you have any questions about the other features, still put it in the chat and I'll address them, but I won't be going over those in complete detail today. I do believe that the lead generation is very important, but unless you guys want me to, just say otherwise, okay? So let's talk about lead gen. We have to start by pulling up a market. And the cool thing with PropStream is you can pull up a county, a city, a zip code. We even have a draw search feature here at the top left of the map. Now, what if you're new? I would recommend using the heat map on the top right of the map that we have. The heat map gives you four categories: estimated values, MLS data, price growth, or rent prices, right? What's your strategy? Well, first off, I don't even know this area, Columbus. So I would probably start by looking at estimated values. And then this little option lets me now look at estimated values. So now I can see where the $1 million houses are. The house is not worth $1 million. There is a legend right over here near the heat map. So that will tell you what those colors represent. So first off, where in the market would my budget best suit me? And then second, I would probably encourage you maybe look at price growth. So now that you know, okay, this is an area for me, how has this market grown over the last year? And then you could see certain areas that have grown. So if you see like it turning blue, I would probably stay away from that area. Unless you're trying to get like a really cheap house, great, but who knows if it continues going blue, right? So be wary about that. I would recommend more on the like, is it going red color? If you start seeing areas where yellow is starting to turn red, like this area here, then maybe that should be an area you should focus your investments in, right? So use the heat map if you're new, but county, city, zip code, or the draw search feature, and you do have the heat map to guide you along the way. Now, does anybody want to volunteer and put their county or city in the chat? We can use that in today's example if you'd like. So I'll give it a minute. Lee County, unless you're saying someone's name. I'm assuming Lee County, but which one are we referring to? Florida, Harris County, Texas? Oh, Texas. Okay, so Lee County, Texas. There you go. All right, so the first thing that happens when you pull up a market, we're not going to show you every address on the map because then you just like there would be red dots everywhere, right? What we are doing when the moment you pull up, in this case, Lee County, Texas, we're showing you all the address that are going through a scenario. Now, if you want to go through one of them at a time, they're all here on the right side. 362 pages. You can click on any of these hyperlink address and go through those details that we went through and figure out what that motivation is. We will categorize it a little bit for you here at the top. And then each number that you see is representative of on the map. Now, I don't recommend going through it one at a time. I actually encourage you to just go straight to our filter. It's right here at the top. It's just to the right of the search menu. Now, when you're on the filter menu, everything happens on the left-hand side. So we have many different categories. And as you select categories, it'll give you options on the right side. So you have 20 different lead options. You have the property details filters. So you could tell us you want commercial, residential, your beds or bathrooms. Property intelligence. So foreclosure factor, condition, you can search by that. The MLS area, you can tell us whether you want it on market, off market. You get to see all the different statuses. So you can look for like an expired listing or a failed listing. Pre-foreclosure filters. So you can look for a default, an auction property, or maybe remove it from your records. So if you don't want any pre-foreclosures, you can completely exclude them from your records. Owner information and occupancy. So is it individually owned? Is it corporate owned? How many years? Do they stay in the house? Is it absentee owned? Are they out of state? Numbers of properties owned. So do they own one, two, three houses? Lien, bankruptcy, divorce filters. So as you hit include on any of these options, more options will appear. So yes, I want a lien, but just the tax liens only. Again, you can get really granular on your searches. Value and equity, estimated value, rental value, and equity. I would say the top three filters in this area. But you also have like the land value, loan to value ratio, assessed total value, the tax values essentially. And last but certainly not least is our mortgage info. This area lets you search how many mortgages are on a property, the type of mortgage. So if you're doing something creative and you need, let's say, an assumable loan like an FHA or VA, you can just click on those options if you'd like. And you can look for monthly payment amounts, interest rate types. Last year, I saw people go in here and saying, hey, let me find all the adjustable rates because they might mature and I need to talk to that owner. So find me the adjustables. Interest rate, the amount of the interest rate was also very popular search. We have that filter here too. So you could say, hey, you know what? Interest rates are, increasing or, show me all the homeowners in the market with a high rate. That's a search that you could do. How about everybody with a 9% or more in Lee County? And there's two addresses that appeared. So there's over 165 filters. It starts with the lead list. Lots of information. Where the heck do you begin, right? So here's what I like to share with you guys. There are two ways to approach generating leads. The first way I would call it the traditional search, and that all starts with picking a list. So pick a list first, right? Just like you would in the past before all this technology. You would go to the county and you would just grab like a lien list or grab like a pre-foreclosure list. And you can do that in PropStream. So you just pull up Lee County and you say, okay, well, there's 20 options here. Show me all the tax delinquent properties. Show me everybody that didn't pay their taxes on time because either lose your house, pay your taxes, or would you consider my offer, right? So step one, pick a list if you're doing the traditional approach. Step number two is, do you want it off market or on market? Now, I would be lying to you if I would say our users want on market. Most of our users want off market. They don't want it listed. So that's usually step number two. And that option is right here. MLS status. So first pick your list and traditional method, right? Grab a list first, then make sure it's off market. So step two, go to the MLS, on market, hit no. Step number three, this is all on you, but the equity amount. So what I mean by that is that there's several different real estate strategies you can apply to a situation, right? And you might know all of them. Great. You might not know all of them. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm only a wholesaler or even a fix and flipper. Well, if you're a wholesaler or a fix and flipper, your leads need to have equity. Because if you call someone who needs your help, but they're upside down on their mortgage, how are you going to make your sign-in fee? How are you going to make your profit when you fix and flip it? Right. So for certain strategies, you need equity. Now, if you know it all, then you can completely ignore number three. But let's say right now I'm playing pretend I'm a fix and flipper. So in that case, I want all the tax delinquencies that are off market and the value in equity, in this case, equity, must exceed at least 60%. So I need to know that at least 60% of your mortgage is paid off if I'm going to work with you. Okay. So you're delinquent, off market, and you have the right amount of equity that I need for me to make my offer. Last but certainly not least, and this is a common thing people forget, your property and owner details. We have a lot of data, churches, schools, zoos, vacant land. If you don't tell PropStream what it is that you like, you're going to get it. Like look at number 4 and 5 and 6. This is agricultural. Number 7 is a farm. I don't even know how to comp a farm. So if I didn't tell PropStream I don't want that, I'm sending 693 postcards and 10% of them could be properties I don't want. So to save me money and that phone call I don't need to make, property details. I just want residential, you have all the property options and multifamily options. And if you want commercial, same thing will appear, right? You click on that, more options will appear. But if you're just doing single family, then do what I'm doing, residential, single family. And then don't forget, single family is a big bubble too, right? Do you want the single families with 10 bedrooms? Probably not. So probably want to narrow that down, right? No more than 4 bedrooms, no more than 5 bedrooms. Or do you want the really old properties? Or maybe you don't want to do that much fixing and flipping. So nothing before 1970, right? So keep it after 1970. So house, what, Burton, slow down here. All right, let me 90. So delinquent, off market, just the right amount of equity after a certain year. Okay, so have fun with that. And then last thing I would add to the number 4, besides the property details, is the owner characteristics. You get to control who's going to call you back. And what I mean by that is you're building a list you're going to market to, right? Cause and effect. If I build a list of corporate offices and I market to that list of corporate offices are going to call me back. So if you don't want corporate offices to call you back, you want individuals to call you back, just let us know. Go to the owner information section and say, okay, out of all these delinquencies, I want an individual owning. And then you can keep going, right? There's step 5, step 6. I would call those list stacking at that point because you can add more additional filters. But as long as you follow these 4 steps, you're approaching it just like many investors have in the past. They start with the list first, off market, the equity, and the property and owner characteristics. And then what's cool about this is like once you do it this way, you can hit view properties and then you can save those 5 properties, right? So check them off and then you're going to hit add to list and then you can call it whatever you want. You can either add it to a list you already have or you can create a new one. Now, once you do that, you can go back into the filter. Don't touch anything. All you can do now is just go back to lead lists and just click on a different category. So build my tax delinquencies. I got 5 of those. Let's change the category to senior owners now.